All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate those that have been able to log in. I'm sure there's a few that are going to join us throughout the evening. So we're obviously going to, keep this recording and put it on our YouTube channel for people to review if they don't have time to join us right here during the live stream. Just let me share the purpose real quick. I just want to be open and available as the head of school to make sure that you don't think I'm in some ivory tower where you can never talk to me and never see me. Although I do have to kind of make tough decisions and that takes time away from the rest of the school. I just want to make sure there's times where we all stop and have the opportunity to have a conversation. I've done an in-person coffee hour that was actually very well attended. Many people remarked that it was very productive and helpful. But maybe this is just a version that allows people to log in from home as I'm doing myself. I just thought I'd change it up a little bit. This is actually my home. I'm in my office here in the country setting of right outside of Clarksville, Ohio, which I've lived here for about 18 years. So just thought I'd change it up and let's see a little side of me and enjoy answering some questions. Actually, I had quite a few questions already sent in. The information to be able to text is on the description of this YouTube live stream. So feel free to just look at that and feel free to send that text in. I've got quite a few to start on here and we'll kind of jump in after a word of prayer. Lord, I just thank you for the opportunity of being a Dayton Christian and allowing me for this season of my life, Lord Jesus, that you've blessed me with the opportunity to interact with these parents and these students and the staff members, Lord, that we've had. And we just thank you for this time together. You said to seek wise counsel, Lord, and that's what we're doing. We're just openly having a conversation that allows us to know about what's going on and hopefully to invest in those things as well. So just guide our conversation tonight, and we'll thank you for everything you've done in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So just going to jump right into it. Obviously, it's going to be hard to answer every single, as the Bible says, jot and tittle of certain subjects. I'm going to hit maybe some a little quicker than others, and then maybe direct you towards certain parts of the website, or maybe to contact a teacher or a person individually on a department. But we'll try to hit some high points, and then if you want further information, feel free to reach out, and we'll direct you in the right way. So, first one comes through is kind of a lack of clubs. A good question. Lack of clubs in both the middle school and the high school. Is there ideas of maybe adding to that? Suggestions would be the debate club, chess club, math clubs, competition, things like that. And then asked, is mainly the issue because we need volunteers. It's a parent volunteer. That really is what it comes down to. Our teachers do such a great job. And I don't know the exact number, but I believe we have about 125 stipend positions. Now, a lot of that is coaching, but we also have advisor positions, student advisors, class advisor, things like that. We ask our teachers to do a lot. And having a debate club, which I had it when I was a high school principal, it was a great thing. A chess club. I love playing chess myself. Actually, my son and I enjoy playing chess a lot. And those would be great. It's just asking the teachers to do one more thing is kind of tough. So if we have parent volunteers, if you're interested in that, absolutely. That sounds great. Send information to me, or maybe I can forward it to somebody that's interested in-house to kind of take that to the next level. But parent volunteers would be needed to probably make something like that happen. Could even be a small stipend that's attached to it. Don't have a problem using part of the budget to do it, but it's mainly time. That would be the concern, to add something to the teachers. We even talked about this today in a development meeting. Having somebody that would be interested in organizing the volunteers. So here's an example where we would maybe have two or three clubs or two or three opportunities to help in classrooms or things like that. Right now, our PTO tries to do that and they do a good job. But somebody that's overarching over the entire school system, say that is our volunteer coordinator, is a conversation we actually just had today. So if somebody maybe in their heart of hearts is looking for something for them to do with a little more responsibility, feel free to contact me, mbaker@DaytonChristian.com, and say, hey, I'd like to talk further about that volunteer position, which could involve helping find the right people for these clubs. Said, do we have any update on the gifted and talented program? Nothing extraordinarily different than what you've seen in the graphic that we've had now here, our 5-year plan for academic excellence. The framework was delivered to the board, so that's right on time where it should be. We are teaching our academic council the higher DOK and the RTI process this year. Our teachers will get that excuse me, next year. You have to have those things in place to do gifted education correctly, because you have to know where kids are at and be able to show who needs intervention and who needs enrichment. So I would say we're right on track. We're kind of tracking in the right direction. Finances is obviously going to come a play in it. If we're going to hire a gifted coordinator, if we're going to hire a GIS, which is a gifted intervention specialist, we have to look at how we're going to afford those things. And they come with a pretty hefty price if we're going to get the right people to do the right job. There's also gifted curriculum that we'd have to buy, and that's been somewhat fit into maybe some future budgets, but maybe not to the impact that it would have if we go all in within the next couple of years. So we're on track, but probably need a little bit of reflection over the budget side of things to make sure that we can stay on track. And I love this last question. I appreciate it. What are your prayer requests for DC right now? It's revival. And we're in the prayer week. And we've seen a lot of positive come out of that prayer week, and the volunteers and the people that have been across the whole school praying is awesome. It's good to see. We appreciate our moms in prayer, prepping that, and Sarah Ann Bowers, my office manager, helping out a lot with that as well. My prayer request is to see revival in the hearts of the students, the hearts of even staff members, administrators, people that just come in and cross through every doorway. We want to see revival across the entire school. And we feel like God's got us pointed in that direction, but that's probably my number one request right now. So if you'll give me a second, I'm just going to kind of transition from one question to the other, and I'm actually receiving a lot of questions at this point. So I'm going to do my best to get to as many as possible, but I am going to keep this to an hour for your benefit and for my benefit. So maybe one more prayer request I throw out there. I'm actually working through some pneumonia right now. So if you don't mind, send one up for me. The energy level's been a little down and the cough's been a little bad. So that'd be maybe one extra I throw in there. Saw a recent message about extending the school day. Any chance we could extend? I want to clarify, I ask questions in the head of school just to gather data. It doesn't mean, and I try to make this clear, that we're going to do this or we're going to do that. The idea is that I just want to see where people's minds are at. We have spent some time looking at about 10 different schools, some of them public schools, some of them private Christian schools, some of them just private schools, and seeing how long their day is. So if you took 10 schools, we actually are 9th out of 10 for the length of our day, meaning those other 8 schools above us have a longer day than we do. The concern with that is just the amount of instruction time that we have, especially in those middle school and high school grades, because we have a concern that maybe we're not having enough time to teach the math and teach the English. So we want to make sure that we have enough time to do those things correctly. And one of the things that we talked about was extending the day in that academic council setting. So nothing we've got in stone by any means. My question was, if we're going to add time and we add it to the beginning of the day, what would be the best fit for that? So nothing in place right now. The suggestion here in this question is, could we add it to the end of the day? One of the concerns with the end of the day is mainly sporting events. So, and church on Wednesdays, certain things that we know have a time limit on the other side of them where we can back it up a little bit in the morning and maybe not affect things too much. For example, right now, if we have an 8:15 start time, could we make that an 8 o'clock start time? So nothing extraordinarily big, not asking for another hour or anything like that. If you take that 15 minutes and you distribute it over our 8 bells, it actually adds up to 43 hours worth of extra instruction. So it's pretty impressive the amount of time that we would get by just adding that small amount of time in the morning. But again, nothing in stone, nothing rock solid to talk about, but I do appreciate the suggestion of finding it maybe on the other end. Said, this question is specific to kind of how do we compare to some nationally normed tests? How is Dayton Christian in comparison to some nationally normed tests? I actually have a little bit of information I can share with you. Let's see here. Let's go to the entire screen. All right. And we're going to go up here and go over here. Give me just a minute. There we go. So here's an example of map testing. So map testing is nationally normed. So that would be something where you're comparing the same grade level in the same subject area, as a single cohort across the whole country. And how are Dayton Christian's kids doing in this particular set, which is math? As you can see, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, we're doing really well. So I'll try to explain percentile ranking, and by no means am I pretending to be an expert. I've been around it enough to think I know what I'm talking about. So I'll try to explain as best I can. So the percentile ranking is a median percentile. So that means that if you are at the 83rd percentile, that means we are scoring better than 83% of the students nationally. And that's our median score. So that means we have 50% of the kids that are scoring above that and 50% of the kids that are scoring below that. So actually, that's a really good number. That's a high number. And it means that a lot of our students are actually scoring above that number as well. So if you look at this example right here, again, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, really strong. It's excellent, actually. So when you're in the 78th percentile, when you're in the 75th percentile, those are really high numbers. And then it shows that you're even above that for quite a few people. I think I can bring up one more here. Yep. So again, looking at math and looking at 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, even the 59th percentile is still a strong percentile, although we want to continue to raise that up and be a little more in line with some of the other ones that we see, 66, 73, 69. And we have all this data for math and English. Some science data, but it's a little more sporadic. But still, this information is stuff that we go over as building administrators, sometimes as part of the academic council, but not so much in that larger setting, but more in that building setting, and talk about it with our special ed director and make sure that we're doing everything we can and using these as kind of building blocks to make sure we see where we need to make improvements and do things a little bit better. All right, so let me stop sharing there. Get back to our friend. All right. Okay. Again, lots of questions coming in now. Awesome. Yes, actually, I saw this one come in a little earlier, and I have this again, so I should have stayed sharing. I love this question, actually. It's about pickup and drop off. Okay. Now, I hope you can take me with a little tongue in cheek here, but I'm glad I'm able to bring this up. We're pretty efficient. And I know there's some people that, are a little frustrated at times, the long wait on Spring Valley. And I've got a little more to share about the parking lot here in just a second. This process could go a little bit better if everybody just got on track and this person's asking, hey, can you send a little reminder that just says, where should everybody be? And everybody goes. This is actually on our website. So if you go into the resources section, which I'm showing you now, and you go to traffic flow diagram, this is actually what you would see. So the idea is this bar right here. So you can see where the lanes are, where students cross. But then there's this plain white bar, this vertical bar. That's actually where you should pull up if you're not in line, if you're the beginning of the line to drop your child off. So it's right past this first setup where you'll see a cross guard here and a cross guard here. And you would stop right in front of that white bar, and then everybody else behind you would stop as well. So here's a couple key points. As soon as your car reaches the concrete, we need you out of your car. Sometimes, it is raining. Sometimes it's cold. We understand that, but you can walk in that Warrior Center entrance, which is real close to the one end, or you can walk into the building C lobby entrance, which is close to the other end. We have a lot of parents that maybe don't want their child to have to walk too far. So they'll stop multiple times as people are, stopping to drop their kids off, and then wait till they could get up as close as possible to that line and then stop again. And that flow of traffic just gets disrupted. Probably the number two thing is have everything ready to go with you. And a lot of parents do this, and we really appreciate it. We're talking to a smaller, group, but, I understand, I'm a father. I'm even a grandfather at this point. The hugs and the kisses are great, but maybe we could get those out of the way before we get to stopping and then having to gather book bags and things like that. Again, every second doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but when you add that over 300 plus cars, you're going to make up, full minutes, maybe, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you do that every single day. Now we've saved hours of time that people are on the road. So great reminder. I appreciate that person putting that out. You can see here the preschool side. Everybody knows for the most part where they're supposed to go. Here's my other point to say that we are working diligently on a plan for the parking lot. So I know it's a mess, to be truthful with you. There's no two ways about it. Lots of potholes, which we fix every single summer. And there's the wear and the tear. It's from 1968, so I mean it's seen its better days. We've tried to band-aid as much as possible. It's just an extremely costly event for us to do. I mean, upwards of 2 million plus, and we want to do a redesign that stops students from having to cross those 4 lanes of traffic. So we already have a design. We have given that to Kleingers. Kleingers is an civil engineering group who has some specialty in parking lots and kind of traffic flows and things like that. You may have seen them on campus surveying. They were in the vest and using the orange paint everywhere. They've already been on site, surveyed for a whole week. They're putting a plan together. They're going to write an RFP, and we're going to send that out to companies and see what a hard number is for us to be able to do this. With this in mind, though, we have started to kind of pull some money back and put in what we call our parking lot lockbox. So we are planning on making some changes. We are planning on making things better. If it's on somebody's heart that they want to give towards the parking lot, feel free. We would gladly accept that, but do know that it is being put as a budget item in discussion at the board meetings and something that we're actively pursuing. So appreciate that reminder, though, that as quick as possible, let's get those kids out and pull up as far as you can. So okay, next, how about the plans for the track and field? Great question. So just met today. So we have our Genesis 7 facilities meeting every 2 weeks. We have our Genesis 7 development meeting every 2 weeks, kind of, countering those other weeks. Had one today, a great group of people around me that just support this process. I'll just give you 2 quick updates. MPC, as you can see, is just flowing right along. Got the pre-engineered metal building up now. We're going to get that hopefully covered in metal, get it under roof here soon by the end of December is the hope and the plan. The connector is being built back to the Warrior Center entrance, or I'm sorry, Warrior Center lobby. So things are going great. And I can just announce right now some very positive things that have happened since my last head of school update. We have been able to add the bleachers back. So we had some donations and some conversations with some people that allowed us to get the donation or get the bleachers back in the plans, because unfortunately we had to pull those out due to the HVAC changes. And then we're also adding, I just signed the paper today and sent it back. We're adding the basketball goals back, the side goals. So I always had the end goals, but now we're going to add those side goals back. That's going to be a real good fit for our youth programs and our PE classes for next year. So thank you, Lord, for blessing us with those 2 things. Still have a little money to make up to just kind of tie a bow on that and take it to the end. I'd say somewhere we're now in the $200,000 range, where just a few weeks ago we were at about 533. So thank you, Lord, for getting us there. Track and field's a little different shape. So actively planning, working with a group called Field Source. Field Source is a field athletic complex consulting company. That's all they do. I mean, that is their skill. That is their claim to fame. And they have been great. Ryan DeMay out of Columbus, wonderful guy, comes and visits and gives me updates and sends me, plans all the time. It's great stuff. I'd like to take a second in here and just show you in just a moment. But we're moving along as we need to with engineered plans. We have a ton of pledges, millions of dollars in pledges. But pledges are not cash. So pledges, as you well understand, are going to be over a decent amount of time. In fact, some of these larger donations, these millions of dollar donations, are actually spread over a decent amount of time, which is totally understandable. I certainly don't have millions of dollars to give, especially in any amount of time. But that means that we have to come up with the money right now, which means we'll need to take some loans out and things like that. And the board is still just contemplating what that looks like, maybe holding off a little bit further to make sure that we can kind of stretch every every donor conversation possible and make sure that we're not taking on. We are a debt-free facility, just to let you know. We don't owe anything on the buildings. We don't take any loans out, and we certainly don't take loans out that don't have pledges to support those paid back. So that's a principle that the board lives by and has kept us very, we'll say, financially efficient. So we're still moving forward, 100% moving forward. In fact, had a meeting last week and the meeting today again. But we do need to support it a little more financially to make sure that we're going to be able to dig. The goal would be to start digging in March. So that is, they ask, what's the timeline? We're hopefully moving dirt by March. I do have something to share with you. If you'll give me just a minute. Again, I'm trying to do my best to navigate. Maybe I should just keep sharing if I'm going to keep doing this. Let's go here. Let's go here. And we're going to keep going. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but this would be an example of what it looks like currently. I'll try to expand this just a little bit. If my internet can catch me up, maybe I got a little bit too big there. There we go. So you can see the track and field right here. Bleachers would be along this side over here. There's a bunch of rules that we have to follow when it comes to Miami Township, as you well expect, and that's great because we should be under those standards. That's why Miami Township shows so well. There's certain lighting expectations. We have to have canopy lights. I've shared that with you before. They're more expensive. They have to show down instead of show out. The track is listed there. It's an 8-lane track, which is awesome. It's a soccer field with a football field inside of it, not a football field that you play soccer on. So it's properly sized to make sure this is a long-term fit. You can see the field events out here for track and field, the shot put, and the discus. Our practice facilities then would be moved to this area over here. Our baseball diamond will be a little bit different. It's going to be sized a little different because it's really, really big now. And we haven't 100% decided on the softball placement yet. It's actually my personal choice to put it where you see pictured here, which is going to take up some of the woods. So we've looked at some things, and we have realized through some research, and we brought in a consultant company, we are not a wetlands delineation in the woods, which means we're allowed to do pretty much anything we want, but the board is still deciding kind of where that placement is and what's the best fit. The other opportunity would be for us to bring it over here and take up, unfortunately, some of this green space kind of south of the baseball field, and then we'd have to repurpose this space over here as another practice field. So still some decisions to be left. If you've heard anything that I've talked about when it comes to the field, the major hiccup is drainage. Having a flat facility is awesome when it comes to building, except for the fact that drainage becomes a problem. So we have to ask our friends at Southbrook right next door, which we've already had one conversation. We're setting up a second conversation with them because our water runoff is actually on their property. So we want to make sure we're treating our neighbors correctly, letting them know how much water we'll have to add to that, and then even doing some work on that pond to make sure that we're treating it properly. So let's get out of that. Hopefully that answers. And then the same person asked, again, I love this positivity. What are the two things you're most excited about right now at DC? I mean, there are so many to count from, but I think, again, I'd go back to the idea that we're seeing some revival happen in some smaller increments, whether it's with certain grade levels. My spiritual life committee was sharing some ideas and some thoughts that had come to them based on conversations they've had with parents, with staff members, with students, and seeing that kind of excitement, that fervor, new prayer groups, new discipleship groups, kind of feels like maybe, what we've wanted is working. And that excitement that is building up, and some things are changing in a positive way, and the culture is getting where we want it to be, and that is to be Christ-centered in every single thing we do, from how we serve in the lunch line to how we celebrate the arts and celebrate sports and celebrate the academic achievements and so on and so forth. We want to model Christ. Second thing, and there's a lot still to be excited about, but I'll just put one maybe that's specifically on my plate. The board has approved a position called Chief Development Officer. I think when Mr. Holiday left, and we miss him terribly, but yeah, that left a void in some positions that I took on as kind of an extra responsibility, and that has been taxing. I'm just being 100% transparent with you. It's been taxing to kind of take on additional roles as the head of school and some other things. So I went to the board and said, "Hey, you know what? This is we promised that we were going to take a little time and just see where the gaps are." This is where we found our biggest gap, and that is in development, which for those of you who don't know, advancement development is just a view of how we're going to have dollar support that maybe come outside of operations. So fundraising, endowment giving and legacy giving and things like that. So that we need somebody to run that. It's been now on our employment page for a few days. I've had some levels of interest from some people. So I'm really excited about bringing that person on. They will be a part of our SLT, our senior leadership team, which means they'll be working with me side by side on a regular basis, along with Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Cox, and Tim Johnson. And we hopefully can lead from the front and make sure that everybody has what they need. And this person can maybe support with some fundraising efforts that allow us to have operational dollars put towards new programming and things that we're very excited about doing. So that would be two things amongst many that I'm excited about. All right. Responding to artificial intelligence, great question. Something we've been working on for about a year or so. We had an administrator do a lot of work towards our policy last year, and that has been updated in the handbooks. And I won't get into the nitty gritty of that. I think the question is really asking, how do we respond back first and show in a Christ-like manner of any technology tool? Because technology tools, as you see, when TVs first came out and the internet first came out, it can be used for good and it can be used for evil. And we want to make sure that we're showing our kids how to responsibly use artificial intelligence. I would say much like the internet, it's here. We don't think it's probably going away, so we need to teach kids how to use it properly. There's things in place. We have certain programs that we use to kind of catch kids using AI and not the proper way. We want to make sure that the work that we're getting is the work of the actual student, and we have some catches in place. But by no means am I saying those are perfect, and those are things that we're still working on. When it comes to conversations in class, that's the responsibility of the teacher to say, "Hey, you know what? This is our expectation. This is what I want you to do." And if you ever feel as a parent that we've kind of missed the mark, the first person I would reach out to is your building administrator. If you feel like your child is maybe taking advantage of that, of course, you have a conversation with your child about that, but then make us aware so we can support that. Again, then this goes for much more than just artificial intelligence. As a discipleship school, our job is to partner with you because you're doing things at home that mimic the things that they see at school, and vice versa. We're saying and mimicking things at school that you're doing at home, which is showing Christ's love, modeling that behavior, being honest, being truthful, working together in collaboration, supporting each other, edifying each other as well. So we want to do those things. So if you see something that doesn't look right when it comes to your child's work, make sure the teacher knows about it, the administrators know about it, and we'll help on this side. We do not have, the question is about standards for screen time. We don't have any like universal standards. I think there's just an understood norm of what you should use technology for and what not. And as far as screen time, it's under that same parameter that there's not as many minutes. That's really a parent decision outside of school. But inside of school, there's no hard and fast rule of, okay, we're going to do 3 minutes in this class and 10 minutes in the next class. And excuse me. Sorry. Doing anything, there's no set parameters. So to answer the question, no, we don't have any set parameters on the screen time. I would ask, as the building administrators and I talk on a regular basis, that they just make sure that first and foremost, personal interaction is the most important thing, because unfortunately kids do kind of dive into their screen, and we've lost in society this ability to just interact with each other personally. So we want to try to get away with that, knowing that technology is a tool and screen time is going to be a part of that. In fact, I'm using screen time right now in order to talk to you, but we want to make sure we minimize that when we can, or where it needs to be. And if you ever feel like there's a concern, again, first thing I do is reach out to your building administrator and see if they've got to take on that. Last thing it mentions about cell phones and Yonder bags. There's no intention of buying Yonder bags. I feel that we should be able to control this ourselves. If students use their cell phone and it's not supposed to be used, then it'll either be asked to put away or confiscated, depending on how many times that conversation has had to happen. And then the rule, of course, that having it off and in your locker or on your person and off is what our expectations are. And we are not going to make a large expensive purchase in order to put those rules into place. Hopefully we can get that done ourselves. Question is to return to the policy of no homework or test on Wednesday that's used. Well, that the policy exists, which it does. I verified that myself. But kind of getting back to that so kids can go to church. Well, of course, kids should go to church no matter if they have homework or not. Highly recommend that. That's also one of the reasons I put in my head of school update just a couple updates ago. What is your through the week plan for church? Because although I go to church on Wednesday, I happen to, went to church last night. I actually preached last night. But I do that myself. It's not always Wednesday. I mean, sometimes it's Tuesday, sometimes it's Thursday, sometimes I have a small group on Monday, sometimes I have a small group on Friday. So I absolutely believe in Wednesday night church. Again, a member myself of a church that follows that. But if it's going to be Wednesday night policy, we're also going to miss a few, maybe quite a few families, because those results from that data says that Wednesday is definitely the highest number, but there's also Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday that were noted as well. Again, not maybe to the same frequency as Wednesday, but there was some notes there. So to answer your question, the policy absolutely still in place. Is it enforced? Not to the degree that it probably was in the past, and that's definitely a conversation that I need to have with building administrators. But it also, while we're solving that problem, we need to also figure out what is the purpose of homework. I think that's even part of this question, is a deeper dive into the purpose of homework. So homework can be very beneficial. I grew up in the days of, take 100 problems home and do all 100 of them. We've kind of gotten out of that feel and know that that repetition is just rote level. And that's called DOK1, kind of just memorization and repeating. We don't want to do that. We want to get deeper. We want to create thinkers. That's what we want to do, and make sure the kids can process and understand that life usually doesn't work out when it's just 1 + 1 = 2. So a good question, and one I probably don't have the greatest answer for, but something we're still in discussion and need to discuss even further. All right. OG training. So I come from a district that employed OG training the entire elementary. Big fan of OG. It's something that we have done here in the past. So just to explain, the question is kind of related to, what kind of training do students, that teachers receive, and then how is it being kind of implemented in the classroom. So OG is a phonics-based learning system, a lot of hands-on, and I don't want to start explaining, I won't do it justice, but I believe in OG. I think it's very positive. I had an OG trainer on staff at my former district. And we have somebody that we feel is going to eventually have that same position here with us. And we've had at least a conversation or two about that, so we can keep somebody in-house and not have to send somebody out to classes, which are very expensive, actually. But we're getting back into a rhythm where we're getting more people OG trained. But because it was done a little while ago and we've had some turnover, we haven't been able to keep up with the amount of people that need to be OG trained in the future. So definitely something, as the question says, kind of, how is it being implemented? At this time, it's being implemented with fidelity in certain areas, and other areas that we're still working on that. And then even further than that, in other areas, we need to train people to know how to use it because they don't have that information currently. So working on that, something we'll continue to do in the future. Okay, this one said about earlier start. I think we touched on that a little earlier. Yeah, about the art teacher, I mean, we've had it posted. We had it posted the whole time. I think the person that's in there right now is doing a fantastic job. Has absolutely helped us out when we needed it. But I think we've had 2 applications. Miss Buma has met with both of those people. Didn't seem like it was the right fit. But there's no magic answer. If we don't have an art person walk through the door, then we don't have a way to fill that position permanently. So we really appreciate our long-term sub who's done a wonderful job. And we hopefully will have some time in the spring to see some more interest, because people will be looking to either change positions or, come to Dayton Christian because they're excited about the opportunities we have there. All right. Any update on the Ed Choice court case? Absolutely. Thank you. So, as we expected, the Ed Choice lost in Franklin County, and we fully expect it to lose in the appeals court, because it is also in Franklin County. The premise, the hope, is that it is going to the Supreme Court. So the Attorney General already did the appeal. So once it goes through the appeals court, again, probably loses. It would be more than likely stayed. The verdict would be stayed as it was in Franklin County for the initial court case. Then it would go to the Supreme Court. Not to get too deep into politic conversations, that is not the purpose of this. But I would say that everybody I've talked to, which would be ACSI and Ocean, Ocean is the Ohio Christian Education Network, feels very confident when it gets into the Ohio State Supreme Court, because there are people that are supportive of school choice in that and feels like it would do well. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're in the waiting game, with the end goal still to get it to the Supreme Court, the Ohio Supreme Court, and feel pretty good about it. Okay, you know what? This is actually the second time I've had somebody reach out about this, so I will note it here as I did with the pickup and drop off. Just the speed on Washington Church and the speed on Spring Valley, and I know most parents absolutely understand that it's all about the safety of the kids and making sure there's not any accidents with kids in the car, parents as well as they're leaving. Just making sure that we recognize those flashing yellow lights and making sure we're holding down on our speed. And I think this person is just trying to say it's all about safety. And I would agree with them wholeheartedly. So, okay. So, update on where going with school choice, what to expect, which I think we got that in the next year or two. And that is a good timeline. As far as, this is probably something that's a year or two down the road. Why aren't school board meetings open to the public? Mainly because we're just not a public school. The board of trustees, as part of their principles, as part of their policies, do not have open meetings, never have. So I've asked that question before. I come from a 23 years of public education, and private schools just work a little bit different. The best thing you can do is the board is really meant to do four kind of major things. You've heard of Carver's governance, or those might have heard of Carver's governance, although we're not exactly Carver's governance. Some of that follows the same mentality, and one of their main jobs is to hire the head of school. If you have a question, it's my job to field that question. If you have a concern, it's my job to field that concern. They've put that power in my responsibility in my title. So please come to me if there's a concern. Now, I would ask you to follow the chain of command. You talk to a teacher. If there's a teacher issue, talk to a building administrator if you're not happy with that. And then the building administrator's direct report is to me. So if you're not happy with the answer you get from a building administrator, that's when you come to me, and I'd be glad to sit down. And I think if you've talked to anybody, I make myself pretty accessible. I try to have as many conversations with parents as possible. In fact, that's what I'm trying to do right now, is make sure I answer as many questions so people can feel like we're being transparent. And remember, I've said this before in the coffee hours, transparent is not tell you everything. Transparent is give you the reason why we made decisions. That's transparency. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to agree with that. And that doesn't mean I can tell you all the nuances of what we have behind the scenes, because some of that is private information. Sometimes I have to say I'm not liberty to say. But just to answer the question, the public schools have public meetings. We're a private school. We have private meetings. On the softball field, so we kind of mentioned this before. So just to make you aware, we're going to have to, if we start moving dirt, that means the softball field will have to get moved. So we will be off site for a year. Kristen Blatz, our interim AD, is working with a couple different facilities to make sure that we can house practices and games with them. I've personally been involved with a couple phone calls to help out that process. I don't have any hard and cold facts for you. The idea is obviously that we would be back on campus the next year because we'll have the time. And we actually have to sequence it a certain way. So we have to move the baseball field fences in to make room for all the heavy equipment because we'll have to gravel all that or it's going to chew up all the utilities and grounds and all that kind of stuff. So that'll get them out to the front. They'll do all that work. They'll tear down the old softball field. They'll dig it all up and they'll take that dirt and actually move it to the back where I said those woods are because the elevation is off. It drains into the woods. So we got to bring that up. So we need the dirt from the front in order to make the softball field in the back. So we have to do that first. So it's going to be at least a year of being off site for softball. Yeah, I mean, just a note about construction safety. Absolutely. I mean, we want to be safe in all manners. We chose Level and B. One of the reasons is they have an extensive amount of experience with working with schools. So we are pretty tight when it comes to our area that we have construction in, and there's obviously going to be some overlay into the lanes. There's been a couple things during the year that I worked with the site manager to make sure that they're not doing during drop off and pick up. Even one or two times that we kind of they crossed those paths at the wrong time and we corrected that. I don't think it's been a problem for the most part since. There's a couple suggestions here. I'll look into those things and see if that's something we can do. But having people directing traffic out at that level adds more personnel. And right now we're pretty tight on getting the 4 people out there, plus Officer Mike at the front there. So adding another person that might be a little bit tough. And in order to get this project done, they start. I mean, I've been there very early in the morning before. As early as probably 6:15, and they're already on site. They're already working. They've got the big spotlights on, so they're working. When they were doing the foundations, honestly, from probably 7 in the morning till 7 at night, till it was too dark to work anymore. So, in order to get that done and be on time, they're going to have to work throughout the day while we're there, and hopefully, we can keep things absolutely as safe as possible. Okay, so this is another comment about kind of that speed limit, the concern about that Washington Church, but more in the afternoon. So this is a good suggestion. I can send this to the township and see if we can extend those flashing lights for a little bit more time because we do stagger our exit. That does make sense that maybe it's at the tail end of that exit, that speed limit has been put back to a higher speed limit is maybe not as safe. So I got a couple things I'm taking out of my messages. This is another one, and I'll kind of put that on the level for you. Okay, yeah, great question about intervention for reading and math. Yeah, so we have 2 that are more focused on reading. They do a great job. That's Jordan Carroll and Sarah Holland, wonderful people, very gifted in their areas to help with reading. And then we have Emily Miller, who does and is new as because we added a math interventionist. Do we have plans on hiring more at this time? Probably not. I think our focus would be to stay with our special education, our intervention specialists that are more related to like a classroom setting or maybe a particular set of students, which we've added 4. We added 3 positions if you count Emily's as a separate position, although she is an IS, but we'll call her a tutor or a math specialist, interventionist. And then we added 3 more ISs on top of that. So we are fully committed to a special education program. I'm probably going to continue to do that and make sure that we're manning that with the people that we need. But at this time, as we've already looked into the budget for next year, we've had multiple conversations already. We are planning, so much in the future. We do a pretty good job with Tim Johnson as our CFO of the year, by the way, just to mention that in case you missed that that in our social media post. We got to attend an event where he was recognized. It was awesome. But he keeps us on track. We talk about FTEs, full time equivalencies, and how many teachers we need in each building, and intervention specialists are part of that conversation. But we have really invested heavily over the last couple of years in ISs, and right now I'm not sure that we're ready to add any more positions currently. 729. And you know what? I've gotten through all of them at this point. So I will leave a little time here at the end to see if there's anything anybody wants to send me. Again, you can see, and most of you have made use of that number that's there at the bottom, and feel free to send it to text so I can have some conversations with you. I'm very excited about just the awesome things going on at Dayton Christian. Appreciate the additional things that people have offered us, whether it's financial supports, whether it's volunteering time and hours, in-kind donations. We have a wonderful set of parents that have a company, a very strong company that's offered us some in-kind donations on the MPC. That's been a blessing. Just using their skills and using their company's assets to help us out. So those types of things just make Dayton Christian a little different and awesome in the process. So okay. Actually, another comment about the flashing lights. So we'll definitely touch base with them about the flashing lights. So oh, great. Yeah. So, a question about the AD position. So, if you've seen in our communications, Luke's going to actually step inside, help out more in the buildings. That's put Kristen Blatz as our interim AD, and just says, as a head of school, what are two or three keys that you will be looking for in a successful athletic director? Will the new AD be able to coach and be the AD, and will the focus only be on leading the athletic department? With excellence. So, yeah, to answer, I'll kind of go in reverse order. I take full responsibility for kind of allowing and adding the coach slash AD at the same time. And in the future, that will not be our the way that we move forward. So, and that's nothing on Coach Hurst. Trying to split that time was a big ask, and that probably wasn't setting him up for success. And I take 100% responsibility for that because I was the one that allowed that to happen, even maybe against the advice of a few trusted colleagues. So moving forward, that will not be the case. It'll be an AD and an AD only, like this person says, to be able to just focus on the athletic department. Having coaching experience obviously would be great, but making sure that we don't stretch that person too thin. Two or three keys, like any other administrator position, communication is right there at the top of the conversation. It has to be communication, 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 not necessarily meaning you like everything that's being said, but you're aware of what's going on. Secondarily is just to make sure these facilities get pushed all the way across the finish line. And I hope an AD, and I know Kristen was in the meeting today for the Genesis 7 facilities meeting and development meeting, and was ready to give her thoughts and put input there. And we would want that in the AD position going forward till these projects are finished. And thirdly, just a spiritual vision for our athletics in general. I'll be honest with you, and again, I'm a pretty transparent guy. We've had some hiccups in the recent past, in maybe our witness not showing exactly like it should in athletic events. Whether it was our student section at a particular event or maybe some of the actions on the field that don't represent Christ. I feel like the AD's job is to make sure that we are holding our coaches accountable, our students accountable, our athletes accountable, and showing that vision for what a Christ-like behavior looks like. Coach Hurst and I had talked about kind of having almost like a PD, like a workshop for coaches to just help reiterate how much we believe that our witness is very important. In fact, in the message I preached last night, you can you can take a lifetime to gain trust and a second just to lose it. And as you saw in a couple things that in Bible lore that we've spent a lot of times trying to give our witness out there, and then we have a fall and unfortunately lose our witness in the process. And I want to stop that from happening as best we can. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's about it as far as that question. Had a few more come in since we talked. Oh, yes. How about let me give a plug for Giving Tuesday? So, Giving Tuesday coming up here in just a couple weeks. What Giving Tuesday is focused around is our Christmas blessing, which goes to all of our faculty and staff. So, basically, we take a big old pool of money as it's donated to us over about a 2 or 3 week period, and then we just divvy it up to our faculty and staff before they go on the Christmas holiday to make sure they have maybe a couple extra bucks to get those last minute presents, or buy that extra big turkey or extra big ham for that family event. So if you can, please plan on blessing our staff and blessing our faculty on Giving Tuesday. You'll see the signs everywhere. You can get on our website and see it as well. In fact, I'd point you towards that giving page on our website, which has numerous things on there for you to be able to support. And let me say this for just a second. I don't want to spend too much on this. Trust me, I appreciate the fact that you pay tuition. I've got about 44, there's been 58 and 44. No, okay. I get it. I didn't go to private Christian school. My parents sent me to public school, so they didn't have that charge. But I understand you're already paying tuition, so it's like, why would you ask me for anything more? And I respect that. I do. There are some families that are in a time and a season in their life where that extra is possible. And we appreciate them taking the time and being willing to do that. We also understand there are some people that that's not a part of where they're at right now. So never feel like it's an obligation or it's pressure. We are just making sure that everybody is aware of what's available to bless if you can bless. So when I put things out about the MPC, when I put things out about, you can give to the field, of course, I'd love somebody to walk through the door and throw me a big check and just make us, kind of relaxed and eased about this whole process. Of course, but I have faith in God. I have faith that God has a plan for us, and the person out there, or the persons that are out there to finish this project, they've already been touched by the Holy Spirit, and we're just waiting for them to respond. So I believe wholeheartedly that if it's God's will, it's God's bill. So He's going to take care of us. But it's my job. And, God gives us a brain that I make sure everybody's aware of these are the areas you can give in, but don't feel obligated. So thank you. Okay. A little bit of clarification on the construction thing. So I appreciate that. Um, Oh, great question about are we planning to add more classes or grades for the next school year? I've used the term managed growth. So we had a huge influx about 2 years when Ed Choice kind of kicked in. And honestly, we couldn't process the applications fast enough. The applications actually have still continued to flow in, but we've really responded with a little bit of a slower pace when it comes to accepting students. Not because we don't want to make sure everybody can have the love of Jesus Christ right there at their fingertips on a daily basis, but we want to make sure that our culture stays the same and that we can do whatever number of students we have really well. The term I've used this year is, excuse me, let's do 1310 really well. So do we plan on adding classes for next year? Yeah. But right now, I'll just tell you, I can be very open with you that our plan is probably adding of about 25 kids. Now, is that going to be the case? Well, we'll see what the demand is. Right now, the demand for our preschool is unbelievable. The amount of applications we have right now compared to this time last year is triple, 3 times as much. So the demand for Dayton Christian is still pretty high. It's hard to turn people down when they're clamoring to get in the doors, but we want to make sure we're holding our high standards and making sure that the families are partnering with us, and not just coming because maybe a certain thing that's offered. I love that we're adding our healthcare pathway, and I love that we're adding our fields, and we have a wonderful fine arts program. I just saw the play this past week. Great job with Shakespeare Abridged. But don't just come for that. So we need to make sure that your spiritual walk is correct, and make sure that we can have families that want to invest for the long term here and not just spend a year and then it's not exactly what they wanted, or maybe that one coach leaves or that one program ends and all of a sudden they want to leave. So there is plans to add. We can go up to about 1,500. Just to let you know, we've planned. We have a master site plan with some construction internally, moving walls and adding classrooms and changing from storage to a classroom, which we've done a lot of lately. We can get to about 1,500. We're at 1,310, actually 1,313 right now. So we'll see. See what happens for next year. It's possible to see a later start date in August, as some school districts have gone back to it. If we were to add 15 minutes to the beginning and end of the school day. Oh, that's a good, okay. I got you. It's a good question. Boy, I can't imagine us changing the date we start backwards. Meaning, going into the 15th or 16th or 17th. And unfortunately, a lot of that is tied to just standards and testing. Now, you may say, well, I don't care about standards and testing, and that's fair. I get it. That doesn't need to be at the forefront of every parent's mind necessarily. That's our job to worry about. But there's certain expectations that you have as parents for us, and we want to make sure we meet those. We also want to make sure we're doing right by kids. And if we start to push those even 2 weeks back, would create a tremendous amount of loss in instructional time. If we added 15 minutes to the day, like I said, getting those 40 plus hours, yeah, I mean, that would help, but then we'd kind of be back to where we were, meaning if you add time to the day and then take away days, then we really haven't gained anything. So good idea. And I appreciate the fact. I really compliment our parents. They're always giving suggestions about how to help students not overtax themselves and not feel like school is a job, but it's an honor, it's a privilege to go to. And questions about like homework, questions about start times, question about just the amount of responsibilities that students have throughout the day. I love that our parents advocate for our students, and there's a balance to that. There's a balance to me as a leader, trying to say, well, I know a lot of parents want that academic excellence, and I know all, in fact, do. But what's the balance between that and maybe being little lighter on our day count? For an example, we could probably add a good 7 days extra and come back if we really wanted to through June and still be under what most other school districts have as far as instructional days. But I know that that is not the plan. I repeat, that is not the plan. Therefore, you don't have to send me a message about don't add 7 days. Not going to happen. But it's still to move the date back would be a little concerning. But it's something we can have a conversation back and see if that's a good fit at some time in the future. All right. Yeah, just another I thought about kind of adding the time to the end of the day, which again is a conversation we can have. It does affect some other things, but those are definitely options to do time at the end of the day because what's noted to me and has been noted to me through either the survey process or a couple text messages here are getting kids there any earlier could be problematic when it comes to just their alertness and their excitement to be at school. And we know the research says that it actually is opposite of what you think. The younger kids do better the earlier they're there. The older kids actually do better the later they're there. So adding it on to the end of the day could be an opportunity if we feel it's necessary. And again, what I did was to gather information for academic council, our conversations that we're having, not necessarily to set a precedent of something we are for certain going to do. So it's a great conversation topic and one we'll continue to talk about, but there is no plan right now to add time to the day. And if we did, we would give you tons of notice in order to do that. If you don't hear about that, even probably within the next couple months, then we could probably tuck that away as even being an idea for the following year because we try to plan accordingly and give you as much time as possible to prepare for that. Awesome. Well, how about I leave this comment as the last comment because we're about out of time. It says, this has been very helpful. And thank you for taking the time out of your night to do this. So, you know what? It was my pleasure. I absolutely enjoy talking about Dayton Christian because I love the fact that I'm at Dayton Christian. I hope you love the fact that you're a Dayton Christian too. So, we'll put this on our YouTube page. You can direct people towards that. I really appreciate your time. And as always, go Warriors.